At the beginning of the 7th century AD, a group of rather unusual travelers began landing on the west coast of India. They were Zoroastrians who had fled Persia and sailed to Gujarat. They were mainly merchants and already knew that by settling here, they would be able to safeguard their religion, culture and lineage for generations to come. Having examined how they adapted to their new environment, we must now take up the story of the Persian Zoroastrians in India. After having resided on the Gujarat coast, the Parsis began to disperse, and it was naturally in the larger cities that they settled and began to prosper. Without any difficulty, they were integrated into Indian life and culture. They adopted Indian customs, as well as the dress that was worn by all: Jain, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Muslim and Sikh. They probably learnt the advantages and benefits of Ayurvedic medicine and experienced the incredibly rich culture and knowledge of ancient India. They learnt to appreciate spicy Indian food, as well as the inimitable sounds of the sitar and tabla in the frantic ragas. It's in the noisy and bustling city of Mumbai that one has the best chance of encountering Parsis. Having explored their past, let us now discover the identity of these descendants of the ancient Sasanians who fled Persia following the Arab conquest of their land. What does the future hold for them at a time when their small community is dwindling even further and their rich cultural heritage forgotten with each new generation? A lack of interest in the sacred texts, a lack of desire in preserving the past in order to transmit it to future generations, other than by simply repeating old words. All this makes for questioning. But must the Parsis be blamed? They are, after all, part of the globalized world born out of technology, a world that has relegated further down the hierarchy of knowledge the need to understand the interactions of religion and history. And yet, one can ask whether the right choices have been made.
It's wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling to be a Zoroastrian here in India. It's a religion that's very beautiful, very pure.
Zarathustra's message is for the whole universe. It's a universal message. It's a good philosophy of life. It's a humanitarian religion.
I feel great that I'm born in the Zoroastrian religion.
I'm also very proud to be a Parsi and happy that I am one. I don't know what it would be like to be anything else. So,
being a Parsi is, I think, for me and for many, many people from various generations, not just mine, a matter of great pride and privilege. Great pride and privilege. I think it's really, I mean, your birth is chosen completely by destiny. And I think many of us feel a tremendous sense of gratitude that we have been born into a community and into a faith that really is so beautiful in essence that it has stood the test of time.
I am a member with a great pride of a community that has developed itself in India from the ground up.
India is richer today due to the contributions of a tiny community. In the sciences, the arts and industry, Parsis have given back more than 1,000-fold in return to the land that gave them shelter 1,000 years ago. But they are a dwindling community. With UNESCO stepping in to help preserve their heritage, their story is one that must be told, read, and preserved. Unlike other foreigners who came to India to plunder, loot, and rule, the Parsis assimilated with a quiet dignity into India's history and contributed their extraordinary genius in every walk of life. As an ethnic group, Parsis have excelled in a way no other community has, and it would seem that their upbringing and strong religious belief may be the reason for this. There is in the Zoroastrian creed a simplicity that defies challenge. Be good, do good, think good, and fight evil. Be responsible for yourself and don't blame others. Listen to your conscience, but laugh and enjoy life. Good words, good thoughts, good deeds.
From whatever I can see, that they were well treated, they assimilated, and whatever the legend be, they accepted whatever terms were supposedly set out, which has been a kind of a code of conduct for the Parsi community in India. Assimilation, acceptance, keeping in tune with the cultural and political trends of the rulers in the areas which they stayed. So I don't think the Parsis could have had a better homeland than their choice of landing in India.
The Parsis began arriving in Bombay from Gujarat at the beginning of the 17th century. Over 100 years later, they forged Bombay's rise as a remarkable business hub, managing India's exports and sales to China and ploughing the profits into cotton mills and banks. Starting with business and industry, through law and literature, including the armed forces, and spanning the arts, music and nuclear science, Parsis always gave more than they took from their adopted land.
Many of them got qualified in the Indian Civil Service, which was called the steel frame, and thus occupied prominent position in the administration. Many went into defense services and defense support services. Most of the cantonment areas, Pune, Secunderabad, Peshawar, Quetta, the Parsis were the first ones to look at the opportunities. India was a cotton growing country. Cotton textiles was being imported. So right from 1850, the Parsis started putting up mills, and then others came along. Tatas came a little later. But more importantly, Parsis proved to be very good traders. They were shipbuilders also earlier, and they used to travel extensively. And they found out that the real markets were in the East, as we are doing now, and not in the West. Japan and China.
The city's cosmopolitan outlook and its dynamic vitality brought out the Parsis' natural zest for life. And it became a springboard for some of the most talented men and women from that community to take flight in their varied areas of expertise.
Jamshedji Tata was a great visionary. He thought there could be no country strength unless there was industrial development. And you can't have industrial development unless there is skills and higher education. So he thought of two things. The first 100,000 yuan he put aside in a trust to build up, make better Indians excellent. He thought they would be a good resource for me also. And he thought the sinew of a great nation was steel. He met Carnegie and people like that, and he told them that the greatest fount of progress, America, Britain, coal and steel. Coal India had, steel they didn't.
Jahangir Tata, India's first licensed pilot, founded Tata Airlines in 1932, which became Air India in 1946. After independence in 1948, the airline was acquired and nationalized by the Indian government. Parsis later traveled to other parts of the world to settle down in every continent. Yet the total number of Parsis in India today is an alarming 67,000. This represents only about 0.006% of the total population of India. Back in 1903, Ratanji Dadabhai Tata, a cousin of Jamsetji Tata, the pioneering industrialist, married Suzanne Brière, a Frenchwoman and a Christian. Ratanji Tata claimed that by virtue of the performance of the Naujot ceremony, his wife had become a Parsi, professing the Zoroastrian faith, and as such was entitled to participate in the benefits of the charitable and religious trusts and institutions of the Parsis. This famous case is known as the Parsi Panchayat case. After a long-drawn legal battle at the Bombay High Court that ended in 1908, it was determined that one had to be born a Parsi. One cannot enter into the faith from outside. The question of whether Zoroastrianism should allow converts is one of the most divisive and bitter issues facing the whole community. While other religions, such as Christianity and Islam, depend on converts to increase their numbers, Zoroastrianism has been, at least in recent centuries, strictly based on ethnicity. The entrance hall of the Bombay Parsi Panchayat. High up on his pedestal, Sir Jamsetji Jijibai seems to cast a sharp yet benevolent eye onto all who enter and leave this venerable institution. Founded in 1849, this is one of many institutions financed and constructed by him. The Bombay Parsi Panchayat is the largest Zoroastrian institution in modern history. It was founded in the 17th century in order to maintain Zoroastrian family and social values at a time of dramatic change, when Parsis were migrating from rural Gujarat to cosmopolitan Bombay. In the 20th century, it has become essentially an institution for implementing the fundamental Zoroastrian virtue, charity.
We are more or less the apex trust of the Parsi community in the world. We have various trusts right from the day the Parsi is born till he dies. Everything can be taken care of through the Parsi Panchayat. We have various social activities of the Parsi community we look after. Birth, education, medical relief, housing. Our biggest is just now housing, because we realize that housing is prime to we are a nuclear family. Whilst Hindus and all have joint family system, we are all independent, and the minute the boy wants to get married or the girl wants to get married, they need a separate house. Being nuclear, therefore the demand for houses keeps on rising. We are a very small community, a micro community in the vast ocean of India, and unfortunately for various reasons, mainly due to late marriages or no marriages, we are a declining population.
According to Parsi leaders, the community has been a victim of its own success. As it has become increasingly educated and wealthy, its young women have married later, while its men have wanted to wait until they have established successful careers before marrying. As a result, many wait until their fertility declines before they start to think of having children. Their numbers are dwindling so fast that government and officials and community leaders have agreed a plan to increase its birth rate and halt a decline towards extinction.
We have tried various incentives to be given. What we have done is, I know if you convert it to dollars, it will look insignificant, but we are giving first priority to family that wants to get married, gets a house out of turn. Immediately we give a house, a 2-room kitchen flat is given on priority to a couple who wants to get married. The second child will get 3,000 rupees every month from the day the child is born till the child becomes 18 years of age. The third child will get 5,000 rupees from the day it is born till the child becomes 18 years of age. We have, for fertility, we have set up fertility clinics, the complete cost of which is borne by us for those couples who find difficult to conceive. IVF and all those other things we pay for. These are the kind of things that we are trying to do to increase the population, but somehow or the other it has not yet gained strength. Perhaps it's irreversible because we have come down to such a low level, we do not know how to stop the trend. But even if we can stabilize around 60,000–70,000, we'd be very happy. Whether this declining population can stop, I mean, sometimes it gives us the shivers. We might come down to a tribe in another 30–40 years. If we don't increase our birth rate, our death rate is constant, it's about 1,000 a year. Birth rate is just about 300 or so, 300 to 400. So it's a nightmare. And that is why we have got all these other various schemes to try and improve the birth rate. We have not been very successful at it, honestly. But we are hoping for the best.
A call for children of mixed marriages to be accepted into the fold has been put forward by some Parsi figures. This would not only add to the numbers, they argued, but would also bring new blood into the waning community. But it is precisely this aspect which is unacceptable to the Panchayat. They say that such a move would see the bloodlines of Parsis eliminated in a few generations. The highly controversial issue of mixed marriages and its consequences is one that crops up regularly and has divided the community.
Why should the rights of a woman who is married, a Parsi woman married to a non-Parsi, and if she is still following her religion, why should she be ostracized?
Dr. Hamid Dalla is the founder and president of the World Zarathushti Cultural Foundation. He is a scholar and a featured speaker in numerous international conferences focusing on the Zoroastrian view of peace, ecology and interreligious dialogue.
When a Parsi husband, he is allowed, who is intermarried, when his children are allowed to enter the faith, why not a Parsi woman who is married to a non-Parsi? This is discrimination, open discrimination, and it violates the principles of human rights and gender equality. Zarathustra, our prophet, talked about gender equality. We have references in the Gathas, which are the teachings of the Prophet, about gender equality.
Yet the majority of traditional Parsis, which naturally includes the priesthood, openly disapprove and discourage interfaith marriages. Some base their arguments on socio-economic aspects, others more on questions of religious dogma.
Now, not only there is a very great concept, a very great spiritual concept, which in the Zoroastrian religion is highlighted in such a manner that you may not find in other religions. There is a concept about, in English, what we call aura. But aura is a very small meaning for that. In our religion, we call it khore. So the build up of the khore of different persons, different individuals come together. They have different khores. Then they come together, form a community. Each community has its own khore. Now we know that different groups are there. So each different group has different core, different characteristics. And this is based on the law of nature. So if different cores are then mixed together, then there is a serious imbalance in nature. That's what we understand from our study of different religions. And that is how it goes about. So based on that, certain rules and regulations are being laid down. Among them that marriage with other religious people is not favorably done.
Dr. Ramya Karanjia is also a Parsi scholar and the principal of the Dadar Atornan Institute in Mumbai. This institution provides religious as well as secular education to children of the priestly class and trains them for the priesthood.
The declining number of population is cited as one of the reasons why the community should allow intermarriage and allow their children. It's a matter of perception, how you perceive the problem. Some perceive that this is more of a problem, that if intermarriage is allowed, then and their children are allowed, then they would not be able to continue the religion as it is. It may be more of a dilution of the religion, and perhaps that would lead to the coming of in the end of the religion or the community much faster than otherwise. So whether it's the solution that is being put forward, that allow intermarriage to increase the population, is not acceptable. And academic studies have also been made of this issue, and these studies also support what I am saying and what these people believe, that most of the children, many of the children of the intermarriage, they are not so religiously strong, their religious beliefs are not so strong, because both of their parents professing different religions. And this study also says the same thing what the people believe. So it is better not to take a step about which one is not sure.
The press has always been an important medium for the dissemination of information on various problems. It has helped greatly in the campaigns for social reform and to influence activities of the state. The Indian press also grew and played an important role in rousing the national consciousness of the people. For nearly 2 centuries, the Parsis have had their own newspapers and magazines to represent various views concerning the community. Parsiana is the international Zoroastrian community's leading English-language publication. It covers a wide range of community-related topics, from politics to religion and art to business. The semi-monthly magazine also focuses on the development and achievements of Zoroastrians in all fields of endeavor. Its editor-in-chief, Jahangir Patel, has often raised important questions about sensitive issues, including intermarriage. He is hopeful that positive change will come about.
I don't think that the purpose of the magazine basically is to spread the information. So if you want to know about Parsis, if you want to know about Iranians, whatever it is, and whatever information we have, we'll share it and we'll pass it on. But I don't think we're trying to, I think with that information we're hoping that people will come to their own conclusions, whether to follow traditions, to change them, to modify them. But I don't think we want to try and make it seem like we're putting things down people's throats or forcing it. So if some news angle comes up, like these women became priests in Iran, and that's great, we can carry that and no one can say we are proselytizing or doing anything else, or we are pushing for a cause, because it's been done and we're writing about it. Or like in Karachi, where they have permitted the Parsi woman who marries a non-Parsi, her children to enter the fire temple. So we'll write about that, so people know that this is happening in the other parts of the world, or that in Iran anybody can go into a fire temple. We'll publicize that. And hopefully people will say, all right, if it's happening in Karachi, it's happening in Iran, if it's happening in Delhi also you can do it, then why can't we do it in Bombay? So I think that's the approach of the magazine. We don't want to, we are liberal, I mean we write about the causes, but we don't try to ram it down people's throat, because then we'll get a backlash. As it is, we get a lot of backlash, but we'll get even more.
People complain, they write to us, they protest, they give their point of view, but we try and make sure that we represent various points of view, so really nobody should be too upset at the end of the day.
Shahnaz Engineer is the editor of Jame Jamshid. This weekly newspaper was founded in 1832 and is Asia's second oldest paper. It has a long and interesting history, mainly connected with the Parsi community. It is published in the Gujarati language with an English section included.
We try to be balanced and neutral. We don't like to take a very hard stand either way, you know. Maybe people have different opinions. Some people are a little more traditionally inclined, some people are a little more reformist, a little more liberal. We like to give all shades of opinion in the paper, the freedom to express themselves, and we don't like to get too caught up in controversy, because sometimes in the community that becomes a little contentious.
Among the contentious subjects discussed within the Parsi community is the question of whether it is permissible for outsiders to enter their religion. They tend to cluster around two general tendencies, reformist and traditionalist. But even within these groups, the variation is considerable. They distinguish between acceptance, which implies complete free will, and conversion and proselytism, which carry connotations of coercion or pressure. Here again are confronted the socio-political and pragmatic views with the traditional religious outlook.
When I talk about conversion, I mean converting someone from the other community, someone who is a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian, into the Zoroastrian faith. That is what I mean by conversion. And very often Parsis say that why have we not converted people after coming to India? And I have written about it, and I very openly say that it would be suicidal on our part to do it, for the simple reason that the majority community in India, the Hindus, do not like conversion at all. And that has been the reason for conflicts between Hindus and Muslims, Hindus and Christians. In the year 2008, 2009, there were riots in Karnataka, in Orissa, where a lot of Christians were killed. Their churches were burnt, the priests were killed also. And they openly, the Hindus have openly said they do not want people to convert. It would be pertinent to note that 7 states of India have actually passed anti-conversion laws. And you cannot, it's illegal. Conversion is illegal. You will have to get special permission from the collector or from the local authorities to convert people. They want to know reasons why they want to convert.
Zoroastrian was the first revealed religion of the world. From that point of view, people generally say that it did convert people, but it did not convert anybody from any recognized religion, because it was the first revealed religion. Secondly, many scholars have studied the text, and even Zoroastrian scholars have studied the text of other religions, and people from other religion. In fact, most of the earlier scholars who brought up the study of Avastha in European universities were Christians, non-Zoroastrians. But they studied the text from the point of view of academic interest, from the point of view of a philosophical interest, and not from the point of view of a religious interest. So as far as that is concerned, anybody can study the religion. Anybody can take the finer aspects of the religion and its philosophy in their life, make it a part of their life. But being a part of the community or the religious community, it is believed that one has to ethnically belong to that, those people, to be a part of that religious community. So that's a difference. And that's why we do not accept, what I mean by people in India do not accept conversion.
Zarathustra would not bother one bit whether people followed him or not, because he gave the message and he passed away. It's for the people to follow, if they feel like following. One of the first principles is freedom of choice. You select, you choose what your head says and your heart says, and you're free to choice. You have a free choice. So there is no dogma in our religion. There is no, in Zoroastrian philosophy, there are no commandments. So there are no sins, because you are not breaking any commandments. You make mistakes, you correct it and go ahead in life. It's a positive philosophy. The whole philosophy is also the positive philosophy. How to lead a good, happy, peaceful and helpful life. I think what can be more than that? It's a message for the whole world.
Doctrinally, the Parsi reformists aimed to synthesize Zoroastrian beliefs with the modern world. The reformist movement, founded in 1851 by Dadabhai Naoroji, had profound influence on the community. But it has not yet been ascertained how much Western education and the sheer advent of modernity had to do with the present-day Parsis' recognition of the need for change. The Parsis are not yet through discussing and much less resolving the various issues facing the community.
I don't think anything can unite them. I mean, they're two extremes. But what I've noticed is that the bulk of the community is in the middle. And that as times change, as traditions change, as customs change, the middle expands a little more. So even the very conservative people find their base of support getting less. And the liberals also find that the middle of the road is becoming wider and wider. So I think to that extent the antagonism may get less. For example, you take this issue of the disposal of the dead, which is the most controversial. I mean, intermarriage is also controversial, but disposal of the dead is the most controversial. Now, because of the cities being here, the towers of silence being right in the heart of the cities, the vultures not being there, the body is lying, the body is rotting, and recently a woman's wrist, a skeleton, was found in a housing colony next to the Towers of Silence, a place called Godrej Bagh. So now things like that are tending to discredit the system. If I say the system is good or bad, no one is going to listen. But if a hand is found over there, then that changes a lot of things. What is happening? How did the hand get out? Why isn't the system working? So that's what gets people doubting. Once a doubt sets in, they'll say, okay, let's be a little more liberal. If somebody wants to be cremated, let's permit it. Maybe not at Kemskona, at Dungarwadi, but wherever they want, and maybe you can have the prayers over here, which is what people have been fighting for. So I think this is how change comes about. It's just that things evolve, things happen. Modernization, television, intermingling, going abroad, people from abroad coming over here, it slowly brings about the change.
According to the Gathas, the most ancient sacred poetic texts of the Zoroastrians, time is conceived of as being a progression of cycles, not in the sense of going around in a circle for things and events to repeat themselves incessantly, but as a series of cycles moving forward like the waves on the ocean, moving forward rather than round and round. So the idea of an endless misery in an eternal hell is fundamentally at odds with the core beliefs and dogmas of Zoroastrianism. According to Zoroastrians, hell is a state of hellish or diseased existence and is a creation of our own afflicted mind and spirit. This hell is a creation of man and is of temporary duration. It ceases to be when lessons are learned and progress has been made. So, Zoroastrianism traditionally conceived death as a temporary triumph of evil over good. Rushing into the body, the evil spirit contaminated everything it came in contact with. The flesh of a dead body is considered so unclean as to pollute everything. A set of rules had to be created in order to dispose of the corpse as safely as possible. As the natural elements of earth, air and water are sacred, the corpse cannot be thrown into water or interred. Cremation is also forbidden, as fire is the direct and purest emanation of the divinity. A proper architectural typology was invented solely for the purpose of the burial ritual. Transported by traditional Zoroastrian pallbearers, the bodies of the deceased were then carried on top of forbidding hills to be eventually disposed of on cylindrical constructions called the dakmas, or towers of silence. A complex ritual was developed in which the corpses would be exposed to birds of prey and thus devoured in a final act of charity. After death, every division of class and wealth disappears. All deceased are treated equally. In the 1980s, the vulture population across India began to mysteriously disappear. By 2001, the number of vultures had fallen by 99%. The disappearing vultures confounded scientists until studies found that a drug by the name of diclofenac, which was administered to cattle, killed the vultures when they fed on the carcasses. The Parsi community faced a unique obstacle. Without the vultures, it would have to find other solutions. Eventually, the Indian government banned the drug and set up reserves for the birds. Proposals for the building of a number of aviaries to breed the birds were met with stiff opposition, and the Parsi Panchayat is still debating and discussing whether to go ahead with the project. With so few vultures left, the Parsi community would have to rely on man-made ingenuity.
I was worried about it, and I contacted some people and came upon this solution of using solar energy to use the cutting edge of science to desiccate the body or to dry up the body, and that is how the solar concentrators were brought into the picture. Initially, of course, there was opposition to it, because if you introduce something after 1000 years, naturally people are not going to accept it that easily. This method is cheap. The maintenance is also very easy to maintain, and it is an eco-friendly system. So today the solar concentrators have been accepted by the community. It forms an integral part of the system, and it is working quite well, especially for 9 months of the year. It is, we have 13 solar concentrators working in Bombay, and 6 other cities, including Navsari, has introduced them.
Meanwhile, in India's financial capital, life goes on at a faster pace than ever. For the Parsis, whose industrial conglomerates and corporations are at the heart of the Indian economy, as well as for the Indians themselves. Mumbai is the powerhouse of India's economy and accounts for 2/3 of the country's stock turnover, 90% of merchant banking business, and 67% of investor responses to public issues. It is the largest contributor of corporate and income taxes. It is the center of the film industry. It is also India's e-biz and .com capital. Nowruz celebrations marking the Zoroastrian New Year get underway at the Dadar Parsi colony in Mumbai.
May that man of natural nobility progress from good to greater good. May He instruct us concerning the great paths of salvation in the physical and spiritual world. These are the paths wherein Ahura Mazda himself dwells. And so, may your ardent devotee become resplendent in wisdom like you, O Mazda. This is from Ushtavaiti Gatha. I wish you all an Navroz Mubarak. May peace and harmony, health and happiness, truth and wisdom prevail upon our community. Atha Zamiyat Atha Afrinami.
This show, staged by the young generations of Parsi Zoroastrians, is a far cry from the rituals that must have been performed by the ancient Persians when the official year began with the new day, when the sun leaves the zodiac of Pisces and enters the zodiacal sign of Aries, signifying the spring equinox. But this is another age, and the festival is now a reflection of the rich diversity and inclusiveness of contemporary Indian culture, of which these young Parsis are an integral part.
अरे घेरवाला चरा यूं भारू की सामान नहीं मले डोरिया केम गरसू घेरनु भारू अरे आवे सु करसू आपरे आई दाखलो मारो जोइने विचारो रात डालो बैचलर मा हैप्पी हो तो मैरिड लाइफ ने गोली मारो म्याऊ 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 म्याऊ
I think the new generation is somehow becoming a little bit more English-centric, a little bit too westernized. That's the comment that the older generation has, that we are losing culture, we are losing language, we are losing traditions. So that is a challenge, that certainly is a challenge. We try and focus on different aspects of our culture and our religious scriptures also sometimes a little bit in tiny modules that people can read and understand. You know, if you give an overdose of something, if you get too aggressive about preaching it or propagating it, people actually get put off. You know, there's just so much you can learn and so much you need to know about your culture and your history. Particularly since we've left the country that we are from originally and come to India and resettled here. So there's already been a disconnect of so many, more than 1,000 years. So it's all the more reason why we need to keep that little sense of connectivity with our roots to keep us going forward. So that is something we will focus on. And we do, but there's always a greater effort that could be made.
Welcome to Dr. Homi Dada, please.
In 1998, Dr. Hamid Dalla founded the World Zarathushtri Cultural Foundation with the aim of preserving and promoting the unique cultural heritage of the Parsis. Along with many other scholars and intellectuals, he felt that the cultural aspects of the community were being seriously neglected.
One of the first major projects undertaken was the preservation, conservation of the Bharot caves, where the Iran Shah was kept for 12 years. The caves were, a part of the main cave was breaking down, and I had to contact the Archaeological Survey of India, which is a Government of India undertaking. Then the other project was excavations at Sanjan. Sanjan was the place where we first landed, more or less, and stayed there for 700 years, and very little was known about the early history of the Parsis.
Another important activity of the foundation consists in setting up libraries. Zoroastrians, world scholars, as well as the general public can now consult books and various documents concerning the history of the Parsis in the cities of Pune, Bangalore and Baroda. The conservation of manuscripts and ancient Zoroastrian texts, making them available on the internet and publishing are also high on the agenda of the foundation. The first Dastur Meherjirana library in Navsari houses some 650 very important manuscripts in Gujarati, Pahlavi and in Persian that are being painstakingly restored and preserved.
The document that you see right here is a very rare document going back to the era of Emperor Akbar, and during that period he had called in the religious leaders of all the various communities, and they had a conference. You know, it was almost like an interfaith dialogue, and he had invited the high priest of the Parsis, whose name was Dasturji Meherjirana. He was a very learned man, and he contributed to that dialogue at the court of Emperor Akbar. And in return for that, the emperor had given him 300 vigas of land. And this document refers to that royal present which was given to the high priest. And the document states that even successive governments, whichever they be, will not have any right over this land, and no tax should be levied on this land also. So this document is almost 500 years old.
The Zoroastrian Information Center in Udvada is a small museum devoted to the history of ancient Persia and the migration of the Parsis from that land. It also houses a whole section dealing with the Zoroastrian religion and its many facets. Another room is dedicated to the biographies, photographs and statues of prominent Parsis and their achievements from the earliest times right up to the present. Since its inauguration in 2008, the museum has had over 8,000 visitors, including school children from Gujarat and tourists, many of whom are non-Parsis. Another museum with which the foundation is closely involved is situated in the town of Navsari.
This humble dwelling place, which is 250 years old, is the birthplace of the merchant prince, Sir Jamsetji Jijibai.
The photographs, personal mementos and other objects exhibited in his modest birthplace evoke the life and work of one of India's greatest philanthropists. His services were first recognized by the British Empire in 1842 by the bestowal of a knighthood and in 1858 by the award of a baronetcy.
Today we shall sing a couple of devotional songs called the Munajat, the first one being O Dadgar O Davar.
We are at the Avabai Framji Pati Girls' High School in Mumbai. These Parsi pupils are being taught to sing the Munajat or devotional songs, a form of prayer that is being gradually forgotten through neglect. Another activity which is at the heart of Parsi tradition and culture is the weaving of the kasti. The kasti is the sacred girdle worn by Zoroastrians around their waists. Along with the sudra, the kasti is part of the ritual dress of the Zoroastrians. It's made of 72 fine white and woolen threads, which represent the 72 chapters of the Yasna, the primary liturgical collection of the Avesta, the sacred texts of the Zoroastrians. There is a double purpose in teaching this art. It's a dying profession, and what's more, this skill will allow the girls to earn something out of weaving kastis once they go back to their towns and villages. Gujarati, the mother tongue of the Parsis, which has been for centuries a vehicle of thought and expression, is also being largely forgotten among the Parsis. The girls are taught to speak, read and write Gujarati in these special classes. Another part of Mumbai, another school. The Dadar Atornan Institute was established as a charitable institution in November 1919. Its main aim was to give the children of Parsi priests an opportunity to gain systematic, scriptural, ritual, religious and secular education, along with boarding, lodging and allied facilities such as medicines, books and stationery, absolutely free of charge. The Avesta is taught in the Gujarati script and later the Yasna in the Avestan script. The pupils are first assisted in reading a passage of prayers of about 4 to 5 lines, word for word. Then the pupils memorize the passage. Next, the teacher takes up the passage again, ensuring that the paragraphs learnt previously are not forgotten. The learning process is therefore based more on memorizing the texts rather than understanding the underlying ideas and the deeper meaning.
Dr. Sam Tarapurwala is a professor at St. Xavier's College. He had done a study, a PhD dissertation, on religiosity among college students, Zoroastrian college students. And he found that almost 90% of them didn't know the meaning of the most basic prayer, which is Ashem Bahu, which is what you start teaching children with. So there may be a certain amount of religiosity in terms of people going to the fire temple and wearing the sadra and the kasti and saying their Parsi, but the knowledge of the religion is almost nil. And part of that is to blame us on the priesthood, because what the priests tell you at the time of performing a Navjot is to memorize the prayers. So children sit down and memorize the prayer, but nobody explains to them what the meaning of the prayer is. Now, in North America, you find that is happening. Parents are trying to explain, because when the children go to school and they say, who are you? They say, Zoroastrian. What is Zoroastrian? Then they've got to explain. They've got to say, well, in India, people don't really ask too much about religion. You know, people are a little leery of asking about religion, even in our school. So here also people have sort of compartmentalized. And it's not very often that you'll meet a Zoroastrian and say, tell me about your religion. While abroad, that would happen all the time. So the knowledge is poor.
In India, it is only the sons of priests or of the members of the priestly families who can become priests. With the dwindling Parsi population, the number of priests has also decreased considerably. Consequently, the Bombay Parsi Panchayat has introduced a financial welfare scheme to attract more members to take up the profession. Even at this crucial junction, the Atash Behram, or holy fires across the country, will be kept burning by priests, young and old alike. They will continue to perform the various rituals spanning from the birth of the individual to his death.
If you're looking at society in general, each one is becoming more individualistic. They're wanting to do their own thing. So for communities to survive, not just the Parsi community, but for communities in general to survive, I think it is a bit of a challenge. But I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic that we have a faith that goes so far back. And we have community traditions that have really seen us through Iran, into India, through over 1,000 years in India, and now in the diaspora, whether it's in England, Canada, America, Australia, New Zealand. So the communities are making an effort to bond together, to stay together, to keep whatever traditions and culture they can possibly keep alive and pass it on to the next generation. So I think we need to be hopeful. We can't just give up and say that, it's a battle that we've lost, because we haven't lost it. We really haven't, and I hope we never do.
I think it's a philosophy of life which a lot of people will follow once they understand it, that is based on pure ethics of life, like helping the poor, equality of sexes, and standing by truth and justice and sense of fair play, etc., which are the messages in Gathas, okay? To operate through Sapantu Menus, positive mentality, and not Angre Menus, negative mentality. So it's a universal religion. I'm sure this religion will spread in 21st century and in third millennium all over the world, because our children are going to be children of computer age. They'll be rational human beings. They will not believe in blind faith, that you pray and something will come from the sky. They will want to understand why and how. And Zoroastrian religion, Zoroastrian philosophy gives the message to the answers.